All right, here we are. We are back. So, first thing for this week, I just saw Jordan Peterson went on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Okay.
Didn't get to watch the whole thing. It's 4 hours long. Just came out. But I did see they put some of the clips on YouTube. And the one that I watched was on the Bible and his beliefs around the Bible. He says that the Bible is the fundamental thing, at least in Western civilization, upon which truth is based. And he establishes that in this argument because ideas are built on other ideas and books are built on other books, and the Bible is like the fundamental book upon which all other books are, or most other books come from.
Why?
Yeah, I was like, I felt like he
It's
just
not
asserted
it's not the first
it's
book
not
that
the
was
oldest
written. Yeah,
book.
yeah.
It's like, didn't they just copy Epic of Gilgamesh? Didn't that go back? And then maybe he means the stories that are within there. When I listen to him talk about the Bible, I get the strong impression of someone who starts with the conclusion in mind, which is this needs to be incredibly important and how can that be true? And then says things to make that true.
Well, either the Bible is written directly from God or heavily influenced by God.
Oh, no, that's not the claim that he makes.
No, but I'm saying if it's a book of anecdotes and stories that are meant to be parables, there were parables before the Bible. So the Bible would then be an amalgamation of stories based on other stories. So
Yes.
why would you make it the keystone unless
he would probably say those
divinely
were
inspired?
Those were those are even older stories that were codified and collected in the Bible, perhaps he would say. But
Why the Bible over other religious texts?
yeah, why not the Vedas? Why not the yeah, this is how and is this true in China as well? And if not, how come our conception of truth is so similar to Chinese people's? Like if this is the necessary structure upon which truth is built, but it's culturally dependent upon having been in the West and like wasn't introduced in the same way in India or China that have, I think, very similar understandings of what is true and important in the world. How does that happen? How is that explained? And I feel like there's a lot of, I do enjoy listening to him on a lot of topics. When he gets into this one, what I take from it that is valuable, and I think he correctly pointed out, is that the stories in the Bible have not simply lasted by accident. Not all of them, many of them, have profound impacts psychologically on the way that people feel when they hear them. Some stories are just better than others, and I think that there's good stories, a lot of good ones in there.
I don't disagree, but I also think that in general, religions evolve to survive, not dissimilar from organisms. And I think there's probably a lot of stories in the Bible that aren't good or that have messages we don't agree with, and people just don't reference them.
Yes,
when they're talking about the unbreakable
vast
truth of the Bible,
majority.
Yeah, they just ignore the parts about not wearing,
eating shellfish. You know what I mean? Yes, that those were useful for a time, but the idea that a deep truth is in the injunctions of how one should treat one's slaves is just clearly that might have been an important parable at the time when we were deciding how we should interact with our servants and slaves, but that we should read any line in the Bible and assume that it has tremendous import for us today now, as opposed to be curious if it has tremendous import. It seems backwards.
Well, yeah, my two questions are basically just why that religious text and not all the religious texts that exist beside it.
Why not the Iliad? Why not the Odyssey? Yeah.
Why not the story? Yeah, exactly. Great Greek and Roman stories that have still stood the test of time.
Yeah.
And then also, what about all the stuff we ignore?
Yeah. I agree.
So,
my dog has gone insane. When I listen to him talk about that, I get the strong impression of someone who is committed to landing on the Bible is true. How can I get there? And does it semantically rather than, in my opinion, when I listen to him, it doesn't seem like it's coming from, I'm curious where this takes me. It's like, I know where this needs to take me. How do we arrive there is what I get when I listen to him. And I do think, for instance, that
does Joe push him on it?
Not in the clip that I watched. He might.
That's interesting.
I think he listens. He's there to listen. And I think he has raised, and he was the first person that I heard who made a good point, because I perceived the Bible, I think, incorrectly as fairy tales for a long time. Just like random assortions of fairy tales. And I think to reduce it to that is to miss, I do think there's psychological importance to some of the stories in the Bible that is more than your average fairy tale, and life lessons that can be gleaned from some of the stories in the Bible.
Yeah, I think I really genuinely think that's also true of the religions of ancient Egypt, Norse mythology, Greek and Roman mythology. I think they all have messages that deeply resonated with the populace at the time and stand the test of time.
And to your
as long
point,
as you just ignore all the ones that don't.
And to your point, that there's an evolutionary process that's deciding which of the ones make it through, that people will continue to tell because they continue to be relevant, century after century after century.
Well, I'm saying even just today, if you find someone who's religious and you say, what are the Bible stories? What are the best Bible stories? They're going to tell you the ones that still make sense today.
Yeah.
And they might not even have read or been taught the ones that clearly just don't hold up.
I'm reminded of the scene in 12 Years a Slave where he's quoting the Bible, and the servant who disobeys his master will be met with a great many lashes. It's like, says it right here.
Yeah.
It's incredibly important for how we behave in the world. And now it's like, no, if you go against your master God, you will suffer in the world. And it's, Sam Harris, I think when discussing Jordan, makes the point, it's if you took this level of willingness to make words mean other things and applied it to a cookbook, you could find tremendous spiritual wisdom in a recipe for baking a cake, because the 3 eggs related to the, of course, the 3-part of the man, the divine, and whatever.
Sure.
So yeah, when I listen to that, I find it. I just think he's not on the mark. I think when I listen to that.
Unfortunately, he's never had a discussion about religion with someone that pushed back, except for Sam Harris, right?
And those went nowhere.
It became very semantic.
Yes, and it was they were trying to. They couldn't even get off the ground because they were discussing what truth is, and so when Sam would say that's not true, he's like, "Well, what do you mean by true?" And it never went anywhere.
Yeah,
which was a bummer. So yeah, that was one thing. Another thing that I already mentioned to you, but this is not meant as a criticism. Well, no, it's not meant personally. It was meant as a noticing of how we conduct ourselves generally in the world. I was watching an Alex Hormozi video, and he was describing his sales process to a guy and how he dialed in the process. And the part that I personally didn't like is that at one point in the sales process where he is instructing his sales team how to close people, they get the prospect on the phone, they're talking to him, and say, you know what, you seem like you would be a really good fit for our thing. Let me see if I can put you in touch with one of the people who actually delivers this. And they put the person on speakerphone and have a scripted fake conversation where they go, hey, do you have some time? And this guy, whose full-time job is to close, by the way, says, I don't know, I'm pretty busy right now, which is not true. This is he's been waiting for this call.
Well, he's also a sales closer, and they position him as a customer success
I don't know exactly. I don't want to get it wrong, but but it's positioned as, here's this surprising off the cuff. Can you do it? I've only got 15 minutes. Okay. They're trying to give him an air of authority and the whole interaction, a feeling of randomness that it does not have. And there are, what I think he would even say are just straight up lies told in order to accomplish that end. And as he's telling it, the person that he's speaking to is going, oh my God, that's so amazing. That's so great. And it just got me thinking how I think culturally, I don't know if it's just people in certain industries or what, the comfort with outright untruths that if we were just to say, is that true? I think even everybody involved would say, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Why do we then lie in order to accomplish what we want?
Most people don't have the extreme negative charge around the word lie that you do. Through 6 pillars of self-esteem and some other stuff that you can probably talk about on the podcast, you think that lying is a very big deal and very bad. That is not most people's relationship with lying at all.
Yeah.
They will lie because it's convenient. Hey, are you on your way? They'll just be in bed in their underwear. Yep. In some traffic.
Well, and I mentioned this yesterday, which is look, I think there's a spectrum of lies which I participate in, and I'd be on my way is technically I'm putting my socks on. I'm not on my way.
Yeah, but I don't think people think it's a big deal at all. Sorry. Everybody will say that they're honest.
Yes.
and not count their lies.
Yes. And I think that applies to me as well. And I just want to be clear, like there's videos we have like how to command respect immediately. And I go, is it technically immediate? It's like, no, you have to say words and then it has to be heard. And that is like, it's not immediate. It's just not. That's not what
60-second delay. It's pretty solid.
But that's not what immediate means. And it's like, that's fudging it. And there's other titles that we have. If I were to look at it, it's like, that's, not literally true. And I think lies occur on a spectrum.
Yes. So this is what I'm saying. Everybody lies. Mm-hmm. Everybody think their lies are okay. So your question is, why are people so comfortable lying in sales? My response is, why wouldn't they be? Mm-hmm. Everybody is comfortable lying, especially when it is good for them.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to a guy who's more successful than us in business, and I had reached out to him and was asking for advice. And his ethos for sales was, if you think that what you're selling is good, then you have an ethical, and I don't believe this, just to be clear, an ethical
obligation, yeah, is what he said,
to sell as much as you can, even if it involves lying. Now, conveniently, that only applies to products where you are personally enriched when you sell them. So you do not have to go out and
lie to get people to go see Spider-Man No Way Home because you enjoyed it. You don't have to tell them, there's money under every seat and there's $20 if you just show.
But to be clear, I actually think this is just a universal thing. And anyone who says, I don't do this, I would just encourage you to maybe pause, take a deep breath and look around your life more, with more critical eye. Mm-hmm. But this was my complaint. I don't like that people eat mammals, and I wish more people were pescatarian or vegetarian or vegan, but I didn't like the documentary Cowspiracy for this exact reason. The guy pretends that he's a meat eater who has a curiosity around the meat industry. And the whole documentary goes through that frame of, I'm learning along with you.
Oh my gosh, shocking.
And the guy's been a vegan
He's an
for
activist.
years.
He's been an activist
on this. And he made this documentary that is a lie, because in his mind, lying to the audience is far less important and completely justified if it converts people to being a vegan. Yeah. Whereas what I would say is, make a documentary that's honest, just about why you're a vegan and why being a vegan makes sense. But he chose not to do that. And I think legitimately almost every single human does that. They lie when it's convenient, and they lie when it helps them get stuff. And then they say that they're honest because they, most of the time, tell the truth. What color's my shirt? Purple. How is it outside? It's sunny. Like, most of the words that they say are honest. And so everybody thinks that they're honest. Even scammers, even people who are professionally, like Alex is not. I'm saying straight up scammers that call old people and convince them to transfer money because of fabricated lies. Straight up scammers would be like, I'm honest most of the time. I'm a pretty honest person, except when I'm doing my scams, of course, but that's an hour a day. But like with my friends, I don't lie, except for when I lie to them. But like I mostly don't lie. And so, your question to
You're just saying that fits in the normal range of human behavior that isn't even industry specific.
Why are people so comfortable? You asked this off air. Why are people so comfortable lying to make more money? Why don't they just make less money? And my thing is, that's just, for whatever reason, the totally default thing. And so people don't, when they get a sales script that goes well, it's not even like a question. They just go, yeah, of course, this is what sales is. This is also what life is.
I'll ask a question about us. Like, should we not use the word immediately? And I say this in the context, truly believing that there are, like, I'll give you an example of a perfectly justifiable good lie. The Nazis knock at your door. Is Anne Frank hiding upstairs? No, sir, she is not. Like, I'm not going to fight you, quibble with you, or argue over that. If you're lying to save someone from the Holocaust, I think I stand behind you firmly.
Yeah.
On the other, and then we could have a horrible lie that is like, did you cheat on your wife last night? And you did. You're like, I would say that you should say yes. Some people would put that one in the middle and go, well, actually, you've got this marriage to protect and there's kids and you shouldn't say yes.
Yeah, a lot of people would do that.
And I guess we all have different areas.
I think the more cut and dry one that still, obviously some people are like, no, that's a good lie because I need the money, is, hey, there's been bank fraud in your name and I need your social security number and your bank account numbers. And like, that's a harmful lie. But some people would go, no, it's not, because that person's old and they're going to, and like, clearly they think this way because they do it and they steal from people. So they obviously think it's justified.
Yeah. Or if, another justifiable lie, you're accused of, I don't know, some sort of a crime. Let's say you didn't commit it, but the only way to be convincing is to lie about it, because your alibi they find convincing or something. Or let's say that you're...
Well, as someone who did a video on police interrogations, I would encourage the
not
audience
to do that. Yeah,
not to do that.
That's not an
In
effective
fact,
strategy.
Don't even try to tell the truth.
Just don't say shit.
Because often what happens is they'll be like, hey, what were you doing 2 Thursdays ago? And you say, I was with Ben, and I think Ivan and Henry were there. And you're just treating it casually because you don't realize you're a suspect. And they talk to me and I go, I was out with Charlie, but Henry wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then in court, they're like, while being interrogated, Charlie lied about who was there. There's holes in his story. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And
say
they
nothing.
legitimately arrest people by doing that. So
got it. Well, I
so
guess
when you do get arrested, don't lie or tell the truth.
There's
Just get a lawyer.
there's no firm line here, but I guess here's what I could say is when you divorce yourself from a particular selfish goal. So my selfish goal is I want people to click my videos, right? And so that I can maintain this business and run it. It's much easier to be truthful. Like for instance, if I woke up with $1 billion in my bank account, it would be easier for me to go, you know what, let's just cut the word immediately. You know, let's just cut it. Like, let's just call it how to command respect. Because that I can stand behind. It seems like what you want to do is increase the amount of things in your life which feel unimportant.
Well, let me
so that you can be more of an honest judge of your own behavior and not self-justify fibs.
Let me push you on that. What if you're the guy that did Cowspiracy and you do genuinely think that the meat industry is this generation's Holocaust and slavery? And you're saying, well, just be honest and like, don't worry so much about converting vegans. And he's saying, I don't care that I pissed Ben Altman off, who, by the way, went pescatarian of his own accord.
Sorry. I actually don't have... My issue with Cowspiracy is a practical one more than a like...
What I'm saying is you're saying, well, if you didn't care about anything, you wouldn't lie, which I think is true. The Cowspiracy guy wouldn't lie. Salespeople wouldn't lie. But I'm saying people do genuinely think... Like, listen, sometimes people cheat on their wives and they just slip it. But sometimes people go, this was worth the karmic debt that I have to pay for lying because I did convince people
to not
stop eating meat.
I think that he's very similar to the person whose door is being knocked on in the Holocaust.
So here's my thing. That's how people feel when they lie to sell things.
Yeah.
And you, as an outsider, don't share that opinion. But they think that because they have to help their family or they've convinced themselves that what they're selling is genuinely good and actually does help people. And so this isn't
Well,
bad.
It might help people. Yeah. It might genuinely... I think Alex's course is really good and people probably benefited on average tremendously from joining.
So let's talk about Alex Hormozi. He could put a very convincing argument that his course changes lives materially, takes gym owners from I can barely succeed to I'm comfortably running a successful business, which helps them, their clients, their family. And so then in the course of that is pretending that you're busy when you're not, when you're that second guy on the sales call, good or bad. I'm not going to say one way or the other. I'm saying like everybody from their perspective thinks that theirs is totally legitimate and that they are largely in the clear.
Yes.
So I don't know how to actually go out in the world and give people a metric for how to know when they're hiding Anne Frank versus when they're scamming grandmas, because most people's aren't that cut and dry, and they feel very strongly that they're closer to the Anne Frank side of things than the scammer side of things.
Yeah. And so the question is like, what's a type of rule that you could, I mean, this is like, you could go Kantian, like, can I universalize lying in principle in this thing? I also think that one of
I actually think you could universalize it, but there's so much bias. So for instance, is it bad to genuinely change people's lives for the better?
Yeah. The way you describe this,
you know what I'm saying? And so
this is the problem with Kant. Yeah.
That's fine. Everyone's like, in this universe, everyone gets told a little white lie, buys gym, whatever it's called, gym launch, and then becomes happy, loves that they spent the money, and is rich. And then the problem is like, well, now you need, in order to follow this Kantian rule, you need to be able to accurately assess your product.
Correct.
Which also has a shit ton of bias, because if your product sucks, you have to go out of business and get a job you don't want. So now everybody thinks that their product is great.
Yeah. So, well, this is a side note, and I've mentioned it before, but the problem with, one of the problems with Kant is that it's like how you frame the principle totally dictates. Like, is murder okay? Can you universalize that principle? Should you murder someone when you're upset with them? No. Should you murder someone when you're upset with them for having murdered your family? Yes. Well, which of these frames wins out? Because it leads to different descriptions of how we're going to behave in the world. So it's a serious oversight. The other thing that I'm just thinking about, because we've talked about lies and I've written about them in the past, I think like the metaphysical structure of a lie, it's kind of like going into debt. Like you take a debt in order to get something you want right now. Mm-hmm. So like, I want to make this sale right now. I want you to click this video right now. And I don't want to have to go through the laborious task of truthfully changing my product such that it really does command respect immediately. Because that would require me to like...
But there is no debt if the person purchasing Gym Launch thinks it was the greatest thing they ever did.
No, you missed the debt. The debt is that for the rest of their life, the way that they engage with people is colored by that interaction. And it's if you draw the boundaries around that interaction, like, was it worth it for you to buy Gym Launch? Yes. But like, there is a social debt that goes around when we can't trust one another. When now what it is required to sell the next product to them is an additional lie. Because we are expecting such...
What if it worked? What if the product was just amazing and they went, oh, well, now I have a ton of goodwill and now they can be sold to honestly because of all the goodwill of going through the first product?
I think that there is when you circumvent the truth to get an outcome that you want with a lie, I think that there are inevitable outcomes from that how do I describe it best? I guess I'm trying to apply a pattern to this that I saw in my own life. So like, I say to you that I'm on my way when I know I'm not on my way. That is a social grace that smooths things over for a moment, but it trains me that I can't be honest, that I don't even trust myself. So then self-reflection becomes more difficult because I know that I am likely to deceive myself, and some other area of my life years later is negatively impacted by that. I suspect that same pattern is true of any lies told, such that the world that we would all like to live in, but we would have to all agree because one person defecting just screws it up.
Yeah, this is movie with Ricky Gervais where he's the only person that can lie, and it's amazing. Everything goes his way because no one else can lie.
Yes. And it's kind of like, it's an arms race. It's like, okay, so I'll tell this lie. Well, it's like, guess what? In order to sell, now everybody has to tell that lie. So now we live in a world inundated with that. And
that's where we live, is every salesperson lies so aggressively that literally when you're going to buy a car, you just have to go, everything this person says is a lie. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, this is the lowest I can go. Probably a lie. If you leave, it's probably going to be gone. Probably a lie. Even if they tell the truth, you just go, like, this is probably a lie.
The world that we'd all like to live in is where we could all trust one another to communicate honestly and be like, here's the deal. And you know what Alex could say in that world is like, this is probably the best product that you will buy this year. And he would...
Can I be honest? People are going to bite back on this, but what the world people want to live in is where everyone else does that and they can lie. And I know people are going to say, no, it's not true, but that is true.
Because here's what you would have to do is you would have to then make amazing products in order to sell them, because you would have to be like, well, this thing that I'm selling really sucks. Most people are, and I'm not saying this is Alex.
If you're not that skilled, you'd have to go into job interviews talking about how you're mediocre.
Yes.
If you don't want to work the extra hours, you'd have to tell them you're going to leave at 5.
My last girlfriend was way better than me and realized it, and so she broke up with me. So I'm kind of nervous about
why are you on this date? Well, I really feel like you're much prettier than most of the people I go out with. Yeah. I think something has gone awry here. Like I
just want to sleep with you once and then never speak to you again is kind of my plan, but I'm going to pretend in this dinner to be interested in a much more committed relationship. Yeah.
Most people, some people would say, I don't even want other people to interact with me that way. I prefer the lies. Well, some people would literally just prefer when they're like, do I look fat? To be told no, even though they've been putting on weight.
So the value of the
truth. But even the people who value the truth, if they weren't being held to it, most of them would start slipping into being that first white liar. Even if everyone else, gun to their head, no one else could do the white lies. The one person that wasn't getting electrocuted in the brain when they did it would just start slipping towards lying. And then they'd start selling more and feeling amazing and prioritizing money over integrity. And it would just happen again, I think. So I actually think most people don't want to live in that world. They want to live in the world where no one else can lie in their sales copy. And when they're the customer, no one can lie to them.
Yeah.
But when they're the seller, maybe like a little white lie. And I think that's where most people would end up if they could truly
Well, and I'm thinking, because I think the idea of a lie as debt is very true, because what happens when you, like, just on a personal level, I remember reading 6 Pillars and being like, I have to be honest. And it started with like, I don't want to talk to her. She's too, busy. She looks like she's mean anyway. And then as you reflect, you're like, I was terrified. She probably isn't mean. I was just really afraid and didn't want to approach her, and my friends were, I didn't want them to judge me negatively. So when you pay that debt, then you have to live with that discomfort. And then at some point you probably go, she's probably not mean. She did kind of look at me. I'm going to go speak to her. This is terrifying.
Yeah, you make the awesome product.
You change the product, which is difficult and takes time, and it's nerve-wracking and terrible, but ultimately is a very good thing. And I wonder if it's like, and I'm not saying, again, I'm just thinking, so like, if we couldn't write titles that were more engaging and exciting than the videos behind them, we would either fail or have to make videos that were even better than we currently do, you know? And it's like, same thing is true of the sales process, is if you can't tell lies in order to get this person to buy, you actually need an organization that is full, so that you have to make an awesome product, like an even awesomer, such that it sells the shit out of itself, and there is no time for a sales team to outbound, try to track down new leads, because it's just so infectious. And that's impossible, or at least very hard.
Yeah, I don't think the issue is that you just have to be comfortable making less. I mean, we make a lot less money in Charisma On Command because of a lot of our marketing rules.
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, I actually think it has been helpful for us, because, like, look, there's a lot of issues with structurally with our business. One of them is that if you come in and look at it as an outsider, we don't have an upsell. There's not like a product that we go to, and we've gone, what should it be? What should it be? What should it be? And there's stuff like, I worked with Ali Abdaal on his YouTube course, genuinely thought it was great, was happy to be part of it, but like, we can't find these things. And so we asked ourselves, what is the thing that I can wholeheartedly recommend? And the answer is psychedelics. Like, not just randomly to do, but like in a good situation with a good person. And I think long term, us focusing on that rather than saying, what can I sell right now that I have available to me, which would make more money this year, is likely to pay us back.
I'll start by saying, I think psychically you're just better off making less money but being happier. And I think that lying is it weighs on people. So just selfishly, I'm a proponent of not lying. But that's an anecdote about us. I'll give you one about Mark Zuckerberg. It's called, he lies every time he buys a business. He goes in and says he wants to partner with them, does a fuck ton of diligence, lowballs them, and then if they don't take the lowball, just creates a copycat of them and drives them out of business.
Yeah.
Meta is a lot bigger than Charisma On Command.
Yeah.
Now, is he happy? Don't know. This is just about the external workings, but I do think our own anecdote, which might lead us to psychedelics. Great. You know, maybe we'll make more than we did off Charisma On Command off of a psychedelic business that's totally in integrity. But Meta is going to conquer the world, and it's massive, and they have lied to a ton of people that they said they were going to buy and then didn't, and then spun up competitors. And
yes,
it's not technically illegal, and people have complained about it a ton, and it hasn't stopped them from just taking over the world. So it depends what you're solving for. And I think karmically, yes, but I don't want to get on the podcast and just be like, it's even, you'll even make more money in the long run by being honest. It's like, well, it depends, I guess, sometimes.
Yes. No, in the span of a human life, which is just not that long, and with respect to concrete ends like making the most money, strategic lies are going to get you there faster than blanket honesty, for sure.
Yeah, some weird combo of being honest, but also lying at the most opportune times while making something that is a good product.
We'll make you more money than pure honesty. But the question is, like, how does that come back and influence the stress that he feels because the markets hate him, or his relationship is, I don't know. I don't know if.
Well, here, yeah, I mean, and now we're going to reach the point where everybody would rather be themselves. And so he's going to say, it was fucking great.
It's fucking great. I'm Mark Zuckerberg. I'm really happy with
and I'm going to say,
life, yeah.
I'm glad I'm me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I basically just didn't want to get here and say, oh, in the long run, that's how you make the most money.
No, I don't think it is. It's
100%
100% not. It's 100% not. But there is, luckily, I think, in today's world, and this isn't true in every society. I think there's some societies in which to continue living, you must lie. So I don't know. I'm thinking of like when they had the Cultural Revolution in China. Let's say if you were an academic on the wrong side of that, you can die or you can
you're saying in the U.S. breathing. And many countries today,
yes,
you can be honest and make a good living and live well and be happy without the weight and stress of keeping your lies straight and the karmic or psychic cost, which I agree with.
Yes, and that's not true of everybody in the U.S. There's certain neighborhoods where that might not be true, but I I think that's true for a lot of people.
It's some households where that might be. I mean, you might just talk about your sexuality and then your dad just beats the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Like it's, it's very, very case by case how honest you can be.
Yeah. So it's not the entire country, but it seems that us included would want more of that. No, I mean, I do think I've mentioned the titles. I'm curious if you see any others that.
Oh, dude, I regularly have to neuter. Where we're at is neutered, just to be clear. Like, I could get better titles, but I just don't because I don't think I can deliver on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just curious if there's another area where we're not. I think we're pretty good on sales pages. I think titles are the area that have stuck out in my mind as the least, the most prone to lies, least, not everyone, but like the word immediately just has a connotation that is not true. And I'm sure that there's other ones as well. If I looked at it, I'd be like, yeah, that's a stretch if I were to ask if it accurately describes the benefit of this video or what's occurring in this video.
Yeah, and I would have a defense, I'm sure. Just like everybody else. If you accuse anybody of lying, they're going to have
to. Even we can take my videos. You know what I mean? I'm not saying.
No. Well, I'm saying I'm biased towards Charisma on Command, and so I have strong arguments for why there's not lies and that they're totally justified. And what I'm saying is that's how everyone feels. So it's not even worth. Yeah. I don't think going through that exercise because I can if you think people think that's interesting, but.
No, we don't have to do it live. I think it's a good one to do in life.
Yeah, I think the videos deliver on their promise, are completely free, and help people. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Anyways, I didn't have a ton this week. That's all that I really have.
Cool. I also didn't have a ton this week. I did have one that I think is interesting, which is just about incentives. And again, I don't know how to fix it. Maybe we'll come up with the answer on the podcast today. Maybe someone genius in the podcast will. But there's a problem with our incentives in the U.S. in the law industry. And I was talking to a friend of ours who's very well pedigreed.
Did we speak about this on the podcast?
No, this is different.
Okay.
And he does environmental law. And so he is doing a Supreme Court case right now. He is on the government side trying to litigate against an oil company so that they're responsible for an oil spill. And the oil company is trying to externalize that to the taxpayers by saying this isn't our fault. He is making a small fraction of what their lawyers are making because the U.S. government, despite having trillions and trillions of dollars, just doesn't have a big budget for their lawyers.
Yeah.
And Exxon and all the other gas companies are willing to spend a ton of money on this to avoid paying for their oil spills. Mm-hmm. That sucks. I mean, he is basically taking a massive pay cut. And when I asked him, he said, most of the people that are doing my job just are not there. They went to worse schools. They don't have a lot of law experience. Once they get more law experience, they leave for higher paying jobs. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the other side and it's the best and brightest making the most money. And that's not great for the U.S. people who then end up paying for oil companies' oil spills. But I don't know how to solve it because the way the incentives are structured, it totally makes sense why the oil companies just pay out the ass for really good lawyers and the U.S. can't or won't. And it kind of sucks.
Yeah. It's kind of the similar thing of what we were just describing, which is incentives are there to curb what is an innate selfishness in people and corporations, which is even if this is my fault, I don't want to,
Well, I'm saying the incentives for the lawyers are not actually to curb. The incentives for the lawyers make it so that you are a brilliant, straight A Harvard law student who wants to make the world a better place, but has $300,000 of debt. And so you go just sell your soul to an oil company to help them.
You don't have to even say sell your soul. You go work at an oil company, and maybe there's times where they oughtn't be liable, And
well, this was question was I actually don't know how these guys. Sorry, I guess I shouldn't have said his name. Cut his name. My friend's question was how genuinely he goes. I don't know how they justify it or sleep because to me it seems so one-sided. And I'm sure they would have. I encouraged them to go talk to them. I say go find out and let me know what they say. Just go ask them.
Oh, I'm sure.
At the end of your trial.
Well, this is the human mind. Is like a big favor doer for your own survival and your own benefit. And it will just help you sleep at night. it'll just convince you that you're on the side of the angels, that what you're doing is either necessary or morally defensible, or the system is structured in such a way. This is what I've heard a lot of. Like, I've asked lawyers, how do you defend people? It's like, well, this is actually what the system needs. Is it needs the best defense and the best offense to combine and produce an impartial. Well, it's okay. You just proved that that's not what's happening.
And I agree with that. I agree with that.
Theoretically,
but the question is, which are you joining?
Yeah,
the offense or the defense, the environment or the gas company. You know what I mean? And I think that
and the answer is whoever gives me the most money.
Yeah.
Yes. And so guess what? When everybody, not just the smartest, the dumbest people make these decisions too, what you wind up with is a lopsided. is whoever has more money is going to win cases they shouldn't win.
No, and I saw this.
On the merits.
I went to a school that had a lot of really bright people, and they get funneled into working on Wall Street, basically. That's just the school and the prestige and the peer pressure and the pay gets a lot of these people to go away from engineering and inventing things that can help change the world, being politicians or doctors or whatever, into we'll go on Wall Street. And that's just not great.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the solution is, but
it seems like people are more prone to do awful things when they live in a scarce mindset and environment. So for instance, the kids in your college aren't starving, obviously, but the scarcity that they feel is one of prestige scarcity. Like, they do not feel valued enough, good enough, and therefore they must compete, fight very hard, do things they wouldn't otherwise do. So I think there's like two approaches to fixing the world. The one is to fix material conditions so that people have the stuff that they need. And you'll see, like, there's less stealing when people are rich. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need it when we have all of that stuff. But there's still these, you don't think so?
Yeah, there is less. Sorry, I was just thinking there are still, Ponzi scheme type people who.
Oh, but I imagine like go to like back in time to where shit was more dire.
I agree with you.
Yeah. It's just easier.
I was just thinking there are people who will steal even when rich.
And exactly what's missing there is like there's a spiritual scarcity or whatever. Choose your word. It's not material in that case. Even though it's being expressed through money, there's like a hole that they feel that needs to be filled with having the biggest fund and the best returns and going to the best parties because they don't feel wanted enough. So you can either try to fix the world, or then you also, on the flip side, you get like these stories of incredible acts of benevolence in concentration camps, which is a situation of total deprivation. But clearly there's some people or some things that spark, fuck it. I'm just going to try to do what feels right here. Here's here's the loaf of bread that I was going to have. And I actually don't know which one is better, to like just give people more stuff. I guess you want to do a two-pronged approach. I don't know how to really train people to be the guy who is less concerned with his own, not survival, but like whatever comes after survival.
China's done it, right? That China's done it. They have a culture that's much more us than me focused, I think. So we are told, unless it's just a big propaganda that's not true. But my impression is that culturally they put much more emphasis on
family unit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing with Costa Rica, I think, and countries in Scandinavia, right?
Yeah. I do wonder that if the incentives are just a bit hidden, it's like, oh, we put emphasis on the family because you'll be excommunicated as an individual if you do not. If it's just a roundabout way of having people optimizing what's best for them as individuals, because the culture has said the only way to make it here, is to like honor your elders and submit to the will of the group. I don't know.
Yeah, I think raising the floor high enough also does have an effect.
100%.
I don't want to, just, it's so easy, just print money and give it to people.
Bro, I would steal and lie if I was poor, 100%.
Well, I was thinking of Australia and how high their minimum wage is, and they have their healthcare and all that. We have friends there, and the ambition to be rich is much lower. So I'm just thinking, just greed, basically. I don't know if this is better or worse, but it seems like there's less overall hunger for massive amounts of wealth from the anecdotal experience I have there with friends and with their friends, because people feel just pretty comfortable doing their thing. They don't have as much of the, I need to be a billionaire, I need to take over the world mindset that I see in my U.S. friends.
Yeah.
And obviously this is just totally anecdotal. Maybe I'm dead wrong, but that's what they've told me as well about Australia. It's like people are just happier to chill. And that's, I think, very heavily influenced by the fact that Australia has a pretty high floor for where you end up if you just chill.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of our friend, it's interesting. So why do some people make those decisions? And I do think if I look at my own life, it's like morality is towards the top of Maslow's hierarchy. Like you need time and space oftentimes to think, but then there are these other seemingly instinctive things that people do in concentration camps where it's like, look, you don't have time or space to think, but you just valued something more than your own survival. I don't know what conditions or how that happens, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't actually personally know any anecdotes where people did it for complete strangers. The ones I can think of are loved ones.
Yeah.
Family, friends, a girlfriend, even someone that they had just met a year ago but were in love with, and their relationship was very important to them, giving them a reason to survive, let's say. I mean, I think of one story in particular. This guy just, was in love, and this was a thing that gave him a reason to live in a horrible condition. And that's who he shared his food with. And he hunger. He was already hungry. He was already starving, but he starved a little bit more so that she would starve a little bit less. But I think the relationship, cliche as it sounds, like fed him in a different way. I can't think off the top of my head, and I'm not a Holocaust expert. I didn't go to school to study this, of someone who was
Schindler, right?
I don't know. Never saw Schindler's List.
I think neither did I, but I know that the stories of a guy who didn't have relationships with these people, who put themselves in, serious personal risk to.
Oh no, that happens. Sorry, I'm talking about starving people.
Oh,
that will starve to death. You said deprivation.
He could have died.
Yes, people risk. People will risk their lives to help people. They'll go from abundant to dead.
But in a position of already scarcity.
I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying I can't think of anyone who is starving to death but gives food to strangers. They give food to their kids, their loved ones, this and that. But there are definitely people who
risk abundance. Yeah.
Yeah, will go from living a good life to dead.
Yeah.
To do the right thing. Yeah, that happens for sure.
Gotcha.
There was that scientist. There was a German Nazi scientist who would quote unquote do experiments, and he just made as many as he could without giving it away. Made his experiments like, what would happen if someone was just forced to sleep 24 hours in a day? And he knows it's impossible, but these guys just never get to sleep. And so he's like, here's a bed and some warmth, and now you have to sleep for 24 hours. And he just tried to design experiments around what if someone only ate this food? You know what I mean? He was constantly just trying to like help people not live shitty lives. Yeah, he was lauded. He went up in the Nuremberg trials, and a bunch of Jews came out and said, this guy who is in, you're going to think he's a bad guy because he was in charge of the experiments, and some of the experiments were bad, fucking horrible. This guy saved my life. And like a bunch of people came out and said that about him. So yeah, I think that definitely does happen. But my question was, when people are starving, will they give their food to strangers?
Yeah. As I think of it, is what you want to do is however you can, is you want to make people feel abundant. And that can be like set up relationships, set up material conditions. It's just easier to be good, kind, and open-handed when you feel that you have enough.
Can I give you one that sounds way less sexy, but it's really effective?
Yeah.
Or guilty. Make them feel really guilty about doing bad things.
Yeah.
That's hell.
Put them in a tremendous amount of pain for the status quo.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It is very effective. I know it's not as sexy. It doesn't sound as good. It's like, oh, just inspired. But it's actually a very effective thing. That's a large reason why we donate so much to charity. Just a sense of guilt at not doing it.
Yeah.
So
it does.
In terms of making the effect in the world, spiritually, it's not an enlightenment path. But if you could just make everyone feel horribly guilty about doing things that you didn't want them to do, it would also be very effective if you were trying to puppeteer behavior. Hi, bud.
Got it. All right. Do you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Short one today.
Justin,
let's do some questions.
Sweet. I got one for you guys. So, due to COVID, I have spent
Are you sick today? What's going on?
Yeah, I lost my voice, but I tested negative for COVID.
I heard that sniffle, dude.
Yeah.
I didn't notice. Go ahead.
So due to COVID, I have spent the entirety of my university career online. All my friends from high school, being far more intelligent than I, fled their families to attend schools all over the country, and worst of all, my D&D group fell apart 4 months ago because my DM has had some things come up.
Tragic.
I'm going to university for the first time now and aiming to make some friends, but a combination of my ineptitude on the online sphere and the fact that my program was the last to come back to school meant that everyone else had already formed friend groups. How should I tackle trying to make friends and maybe even forming a D&D group when most others have already established groups and clubs and extracurriculars still haven't opened up because of university bureaucrats?
Oh,
That's tricky.
spicy.
And I also wanted to add that I'm looking forward to your guys' D&D show, and finally that Ben, Blade Singers are the best.
Hey, my guy. D&D show is going to be trash. Don't get too excited. We're trying our best. So, yeah, I mean, the clubs thing makes it really tough.
I actually don't even know what college looks like in a COVID world. Do you go to campus? Are you in dorms?
Well, it sounds like this person just got back to campus.
Okay, so they're in campus, staying at a dorm. Potentially.
I don't know if they're staying at a dorm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, okay, so here's what I think. Where do people meet in college? Okay.
So I don't know. Here's what I would do. I would just use this one sentence over and over again. If I were transported back to being 19, but I was in a college campus where I missed my whole freshman year, let's say. And so people have their friends, right? I would just walk around to people that were in my classroom sitting next to me, or when sitting at a table in a cafeteria, and I would just go, hey, I don't think I've met you yet. I'm Ben. And it's a very simple line, but it's very effective in bars and clubs. And I think it would work on a college campus. And I would even say, like, hey, what's up? I don't think I met you yet. I'm Ben. I'm part of this program that literally this is my first day on campus. Mm-hmm. And I would just do that as often as I could. Mm-hmm. And I think that that is something that is going to be well received or poorly received, depending on how comfortable you seem and how smiley you are and how you're dressed. And it's basically going to be your thin slice plus that line is what I would rely on to meet a bunch of people.
Yeah. So college campus is
also, sorry, I just want to say one thing. College sanctioned events and clubs being nixed does not mean that on-campus events have been nixed. Like, there may be fraternities having football nights and you could still rush a fraternity and get invited to football every week. At least in the US, that happens, and the campus doesn't know anything about it. So you could still look for things of that nature.
Got it. Yeah. I really don't know what it is like with COVID, what you are and are not allowed to do. To your thing, I think it in many cases would go better with like a some sort of a question preceding it, and it might be like just a simple orienting question, like, hey, are you guys students in the philosophy school? Like, you're in the philosophy building. You know what I mean? Hey, are you guys students at the philosophy school? Oh yeah, we're like grads. Oh nice. Like, I just got here. It just seems I think in these closed environments of a college campus, that those little orienting questions just signals like, yo, I'm in. I'm one of you guys. Like, I was checking to see if you are this thing that I also am. But no, it's not. You're not going to say, are you students here? Or like, but I think that could work for a lot of situations where you're near a particular school, or I guess there's not a lot of events. I was going to say,
I think if you're sitting in a classroom, turning to someone next to you and saying, hey, I don't think I've met you yet, is going to work every time.
If you're in a classroom, for sure.
Yeah. If you're just sitting in finance class and you, at least for mine, we didn't have assigned seats. So every week you're just sitting next to someone new. You just sit down and you go, hey, I don't think I've met you yet. I'm Ben. And you smile and seem normal. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to go reasonably well.
I also would recommend, if you're in class, which I don't know if I guess it sounds like they're in person again. Say one more sentence is a good thing. That's just a general charisma tip. But like, a lot of these initial interactions might not result in the exchange of phone numbers, but you're just going to like, dude, that homework was so hard. Oh my God. Like, I stayed up all night. And it's like, that's all that you'll say to that guy for that class. But the next class, it's like your friends. Like, you sit down, you're like, dude, what's up, man?
Just talk to everyone. Now, So I blew this because I, at the time, was not particularly friendly when I was 18. But I was wearing an Eagles jersey. And someone was like, yo, man, are you an Eagles fan? I'm from Philly. That's a great idea. It didn't lead to us having a friendship right away. We became friends later, and he teases me for being a dick. But it's a great idea. And if you do it often enough, friendships will come from it. It's not a 100% strategy. But if it were me, again, I'm on a college campus, I'm 19, and I don't know anyone. I'm in line at Chipotle, and someone's in front of me and someone's behind me. I'm just looking around. Is there something I can comment on? A Lakers jersey, a sports hat. They're reading a book about a certain thing. Now, maybe if they're not if they're reading a book, maybe don't interrupt them. But like, they're holding a book about philosophy. I'm looking to make observational conversation.
Yeah.
whenever possible and seeing if I connect well with anyone and who's receptive to it. And I expect that the majority will lead to nothing but a conversation. But I do expect that 10% of them would lead to, at the end of it, like, hey, you seem cool, man. Do you want to go?
But even beyond that, and
the bar or
and
something.
The fact that it's this closed circle where it's this repeat.
Yeah, you're going to see them again.
Is like, okay, is that going to work in a giant city? Like, yeah, maybe 10% of the time or less you'll connect with people. It's like you're just going to constantly be bumping into these people.
That's actually a great point
again.
That you don't even have to necessarily
rush.
Go anywhere. You don't have to rush for anything because you see the guy at Chipotle. Hey, dude, Lakers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. Hey, what was your name, by the way? Charlie? Oh, I'm Ben. Yeah, all right, nice to meet you.
Did you see the game last night, dude?
Yeah, you see them in a week.
Blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, yo, we're watching the game. It's that stuff can be an evolving process, and I think is how it often goes in college. Basically, what happens in college is everybody pairs up with the first person that's like next to them, their roommate or whatever, and then their other relationships are formed in the ways that we've said, more slowly over time.
Yeah, I even did this with Art, and I wasn't. We have different ideas of like nightlife, so it didn't really go anywhere. But even a neighbor as an adult, people always say it's hard to make adult friends. But I just had a guy on my hallway who's similar age, and we just did that for a month. You know what I mean? Just conversation, no plans. One day we're chatting at his door, and he's like, hey, by the way, I have friends in here watching the football game. Do you want to come in? And I was like, sure. I've been in LA for a month. I'm down to make friends. You know what I mean? So I just go in, and now meeting him and 3 of his friends, and we're hanging out for a couple hours watching football. I don't care that much about football, but it was just a cool opportunity to kind of make friends.
It was an easy yes that might have been strange the first day. Yeah.
No way I would have gotten the invite the first day. It was the 11th time we talked, over the course of 2 months, let's say.
Yeah. Very good.
So yeah, I think that's a really good call too. In those closed environments, you can just be friendly and then allow serendipity, be friendly with everyone and allow serendipity to kind of put you in people's paths. What about for D&D? I think you can also be a beacon by you could wear D&D shirts that people who don't, especially for the people who
Critical Role shirt on.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Don't wear a shirt that says Dungeons and Dragons. I wouldn't, at least, because that was not cool when I was a teenager. But you could wear a Critical Role shirt or something like that. That's not initially means nothing except for to the people who like it.
If they ask you, be like, "Oh, this is a D&D show that I'm crazy."
Oh yeah,
about
for sure. I wouldn't hide it. But I'm just saying, I think that what that does is it's going to bring people who do like D&D. They can be like, "Oh, you like Critical Role? I like Critical Role." So now you're allowing other people to have those serendipitous conversations with you as well.
And you probably you'll eventually get to what you like. Like bring up, oh, dude, I'm a tabletop gamer. I love like nerdy games like that. And the people who are the right people be like, oh, what kind of games? And the people that don't care will be like, oh, and they'll talk about something else. So we talk. I don't want to get too deep. Like there's a lot of charisma videos out there that we've made.
Yeah.
But when you're in conversation with people, imagine yourself throwing out a bunch of different threads that people can select if they want to hook into. And so just make sure you're throwing out the thread when people ask you what you are up to or that kind of stuff, what you do for fun, that is a thread that is present.
Yeah, you made a video on how to make friends as an adult that I would recommend this person watch.
Cool.
Also, anyone who wants to connect with people at events, I recently watched a video Charlie made about networking that I thought was really good. Well done, dude. It was from 2018.
Nice.
You were very wise back then.
I had it.
Yeah. So if the Charisma on Command How to Network, if you're interested in connecting with people at events, I found it to be a very good video.
Fantastic. Cool.
What are we talking about on Patreon today, Justin?
Patreon today, we got if the sex god method is pickup artist bullshit, Jordan Peterson's waning credibility and splitting the check on the first date.
Okay.
Some good ones
More
today.
Jordan Peterson.
Some good ones.
I feel like I was not overly. My 2 topics were like, I didn't like this today.
Sometimes you're grumpy. It's okay.
Not grumpy. It's just I disagree, I suppose. But
Well, let's say something nice. Why don't you say something nice about
Jordan?
I was thinking one of your League of Legends teammates.
Ooh. Which one shall I do?
Ivan.
Should I do Ivan?
Yeah.
Ivan got much better with Warwick. Ivan actually...
He's honestly already a better jungler than he is ADC.
Yes. No, he's has a positive impact on the games when he's a Warwick these days, which is a total shift from misfortune.
Justin's still the best.
Justin is the best.
Do you Twitch?
Yes.
Can people follow you?
Me?
People watch you play?
I don't think I'm good enough to Twitch.
Well, if you come into norms, you are.
Yeah.
When you go 20-0 in norms. All right, let's go to Patreon.
All right.
Wait, were you gonna say something else?
I was gonna say Justin has the best skills, but also is the most likely to be like, I'm gonna 3-on-1 this. Like, it's like, no, we're coming down lane. He's like, no, that's why I have to go right now.
Justin has what I would describe as the Mamba mentality. He's got the Kobe Bryant mindset, which is I recognize that I'm triple teamed, but I also recognize that I can score while triple teamed.
So let's find out.
Let's find out.
Cool. All right, we're gonna hop over to Patreon if you guys want to check that out. Keeps the podcast going. Money in Justin's pocket. And we've got some interesting questions today, so hope to see you there. Any dollar amount gets you in. Peace.